Hi guys, I am going to start the new year off talking about overachievers. This is one of my favorite populations to work with, aside from OCD and anxiety disorders, but I love overachiever related anxiety and OCD. And I'm going to do a whole set of talks on this just to provide as much education as I can about it, because I often think that this population gets lost because they are achieving so much. So people on the outside can't even imagine that they're depressed or anxious. I mean, because they're so successful, why would they be? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about it today on how to identify if you or someone you love if this is part of your mental health issue. And so the first thing I always like to start with, and the way that I identify them in here, is whenever they do have a goal that they're trying to meet, they talk about the goal in this very perfectionistic way, number one. They also want to meet the goal perfectionistically, right? So they want 100% certainty that it's going to come out well. And so the way this kind of looks in my office is they'll talk about, I want to make A's, and then they'll talk about all this anxiety in school. And so I'm like, oh, well, you must struggle in school. No, never struggle in their life. And then they'll talk about, like, if they do make a B, how they feel, how anxious they are, and how it feels like a failure, even though it's a B, right? And so these are all like indicators that they could possibly have anxiety or depression related to this, right? Because they're constantly working for that perfect goal, and they will overstudy, overschedule. They'll do all kinds of things to try to meet the goal as completely as possible with as much certainty as possible. It's kind of sad to see when you break it down and find out how much they think about it, how much they study. They're overworking. The overscheduling tends to just be a part of it because they think in order to be successful, they have to have a lot in their schedule. So they have tons. I mean, some of the teens, I'm like, okay, so how much wiggle room do you have in a day? 30 minutes. I'm like, that's crazy. You need more than 30 minutes to like catch your head, right? So I think it's just important to know if it's going on. They also are perfectionistic, which I talked about. And so their goals are going to be perfectionistic, and what they expect of themselves is perfectionistic. It's not reasonable at all. They're outcome driven. They typically have anxiety that is relieved when they meet a goal until they start working on the next goal, right? And so it's this little cycle they're in of anxiety followed by compulsive working, because a lot of times they could have OCD or OCD-like traits. They're compulsively working on tasks or projects to ensure success. And then they get a little bit of relief when it is done, right? And the anxiety's done and they've done it successfully, but then we're right back in it again. And so it becomes a vicious cycle. And then a lot of times they have a hard time stopping themselves. Not that they're addicted to the work, but kind of like they are addicted. That's the easiest way to understand it. And it's hard because, it's supported. These are things that are good to do in the world, right? And so in order to work on this issue, you have to be willing to do things differently and to not achieve so much. And it's a lot that you have to address inside of yourself. And it's tough. I'm just going to say it's tough because doing what you need to get better feels wrong. And so the reason I love this subject is because I can relate. So I was not an overachiever in high school, but when I became an adult in my early 20s, I started achieving and I just enjoyed it. And then it just got more and more. And I was perfectionistic, and, I've done tons of work on that stuff, right? But I understand the way that it goes, and I understand how powerful it is. So if this is part of your issue or someone you love, you're welcome to call me, message me, and I'll answer any of your questions.